Hi, Senator. Thanks for being with us. Welcome back to Power Play.
Thank you. Great to be on with you, Mike.
So you've been one of the most vocal senators in D.C. opposing tariffs. It would seem now that public sentiment is kind of shifting in the U.S. Do you think that there's a better chance now of getting through to President Trump on reversing course?
Look, one of the things President Trump has believed in for decades is the power of tariffs to strengthen the American economy and drive reindustrialization. What I think is getting through is that Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate are hearing from our constituents that Trump ran on lowering our costs and making America healthy again, but he's doing the opposite. Our costs are going up because of tariffs, and lots of people are calling and complaining, and our healthcare system is a mess. So his popularity is going down, and I think more members of Congress are willing to stand up to him on the tariffs that are hurting both our economy and our close partnership, our alliance with Canada.
Do you think that that is the path to getting to him, either his popularity going down, or is it more on Republicans who can maybe pull him aside and have that conversation with him?
I think it's both. I think Republicans need to have private conversations with him to say tariffs are hurting a wide variety of the things that Americans say they care about most. For example, housing. A lot of what goes into American housing is lumber from Canada and wallboard from Mexico. And I frankly hope that President Trump rediscovers some pride in the USMCA, the deal, the trade and tariff deal that he signed as president his first term to provide tariff-free market access throughout North America between the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
There is that U.S. Supreme Court ruling, and whether or not it's going to decide if imposing tariffs does truly lie in the power of Congress. So if it does rule that only Congress can impose those tariffs, what is your plan to prevent President Trump from possibly using another lever, like Section 232 tariffs of the Trade Expansion Act, which cites national security? Is there a path to prevent him from going there?
Look, when Trump imposed tariffs on Canada based on national security, the first time he was president, I'll never forget our meeting with a senior government minister at the time, expressing politely and appropriately the anger and the frustration of Canadians at being cited as a potential national security threat. I believe these were sanctions on steel and aluminum under Section 232. It is hard for us unless Republicans are willing to stand forward and speak out in opposition and vote in opposition. One positive sign, I think an encouraging one, is that the Senate has twice this year passed legislation saying that we oppose the tariffs that Trump has been imposing on Canada. Our challenge is the House of Representatives, controlled by Republicans, hasn't taken up that bill.
So how do you get them to take that up?
Frankly, they need to see and hear pressure from their constituents. The #1 political issue in America was rising costs a year ago when Trump was elected, and we just had by-elections in a number of states, in Georgia, in Virginia, in California, in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, and across the country where Democrats did very well in all these elections. Rising costs was cited as the #1 reason people came out and voted Democrat. So as we move towards our midterm elections next year, I'm hoping that that pressure on members of Congress and the administration will cause President Trump to reconsider moving towards a responsible, balanced trade deal with our vital partner and ally, Canada.
If you compare the first Trump presidency and this one now, do you have faith that the midterms will send some sort of a message to him to change course? And I only say that because I think from this side of the border, a number of Canadians look at it like there were people inside the White House that could maybe sway him one way or the other. And perhaps those same people aren't around now, or that President Trump knows the levers that he can pull this time and is simply ignoring anybody who says that he should change course.
Look, his cabinet this time is quite different from his cabinet the first time. Just to pick one example, Secretary Jim Mattis, a decorated 4-star Marine Corps general with decades of experience, was confirmed unanimously by the Senate. This time, Secretary Hegseth, a very different person with different level of experience, was barely confirmed by a 1-vote margin. That's the case across much of his cabinet. And frankly, he's governed in a much more imperious way, barely consulting with Congress, including members of his own party. So I would agree with your characterization that the circle right around him is much more loyalists and much less institutionalists. But I do think that the 2026 congressional elections may well deliver a real check on his power, just as the 2018 elections did. The most recent nationwide poll on which party is preferred in the upcoming elections for Congress has Democrats up double digits in one of the most promising polls I've seen in the last year.
Now, you're at the Halifax International Security Conference, and related to that, Canada is in the middle of making a decision on which fighter jet to buy. There's a Swedish delegation that was in Ottawa, including lawmakers and their king and queen, and there was a pitch to buy the European-made Gripen jet. Now, U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, has strongly hinted recently that if Canada's choice on that jet could impact the NORAD defense system, because, of course, you have the F-35s in the U.S. Do you agree with that, that our choice in which jet to buy would affect NORAD?
I'm not going to speak to that critical national security issue without better background for myself on exactly what would have caused our ambassador to make that comment. I think our alliance through NATO, our partnership in shared security in North America, and in particular, Canada's leading work in securing the Arctic, I think all argue in favor of our having a stable and sustained partnership where we find our way towards a trusted and open and transparent national security partnership. The Swedish Minister of Defense is here at the conference, and I recognize that the F-35 is an American-made but a multinational fighter that is the world's cutting-edge fighter. Of course, my hope is that Canada would procure the F-35, but frankly, Canada has to be free to make its own choice as a sovereign nation and as a NATO ally and partner of our country.
Before leaving, I wanted to ask you one more question. Ambassador Hoekstra has often remarked here in Canada how surprised he is at the reaction of Canadians to this whole trade dispute, but especially on the calls for Canada to become the 51st state. Are you as perplexed as the ambassador at how Canadians are feeling right now vis-a-vis Canada-U.S. relations?
No, I'm not. Early on in this term, President Trump made a number of disparaging, aggressive, even offensive comments. Some in America have long ago, some in the United States, forgive me, have long ago gotten used to just dismissing comments by President Trump as, oh, there he goes again. Oh, that's just casual. But, you know, threatening to take Greenland from Denmark, threatening to retake the Panama Canal, threatening to make Canada the 51st state. These aren't funny. These aren't appropriate. And I am this week dealing with the fallout in Congress from President Trump making casual, I hope, threats that several of my colleagues, 2 senators, 4 members of the House, should be put on trial for treason. So I understand the ambassador. It's his job to put on a positive face and to improve relations. But I understand why Canadians were upset, even offended, by a number of comments President Trump made early in his term, suggesting that we would attempt to make Canada the 51st state. Anyone who knows Canadians, who understands Canada's deep pride and respects its sovereignty knows that that's not a laughing matter. This conference began with a film reminding us of the incredible hospitality shown at Gander after 9/11 to thousands of Americans and people from all over the world, a kind, gentle, but firm reminder that Canada has stood by us every time and it really mattered, and we should do the same to Canada and be good neighbors.
All right, we're going to leave it on that note. Democratic Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.